as you guys may know, my dad passed away this year. And it's been some months. And if I can be honest, grief has been whooping my ass. But I have found solace in the things that I love, which happens to be literature and books. So let's talk about some books that cover the subject of grief in a few different ways that have helped me during my journey. It may help you or someone that you may know. Hi friends, welcome back to Shelbey in the Book Club. I am Shelbey Monet, and in today's video we are going to talk about some books surrounding grief. I'm going to try not to cry in this video. Talking about my dad is hard, but it also heals me in some ways. And I think grief, we experience grief and death in a lot of different ways that I don't think we acknowledge correctly. Death isn't anything but a doorway, right? It is closing one door and opening another one. And we experience that type of transition when we move to a new house, when we make new friendships or lose other friendships, when we break up with the person that we thought was going to be the love of our lives. We are in fact grieving those deaths. And I think if we spent more time honoring those things, instead of trying to bury them and meet societal standards, we would be in a better place. We need to teach the children how to grieve. So I have a few different books here that cover the subject loosely. Again, I'm going to try not to cry, so bear with me. All the books will be linked down below in the underneath bar. It's called the underneath bar because it is underneath the video. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get into it for real this time. So we're just going to jump right into it. Zeal by Morgan Jerkins. You guys know this is one of my favorite books this year. I absolutely love Morgan Jerkins. This is a love story told over the span of generations. So first in 2019, we meet Ardelia and Oliver at their engagement party, where he gives her this letter from his ancestor that was separated from their love. And she asks him, like, well, did they ever find each other again? And he says, how do you think I'm here with you right now? So in Natchez, 1865, Harrison is discharged from the Union Army, and he goes back to Mississippi to reunite with his love, Tirza. And she is not there. And this turns into this spiral of him having to grieve the life that he thought he was coming back to. He thought he was coming back to his love. He did not. He thought he knew how to find her. He went to the Freedmen's Bureau, but there was a woman there that found him attractive and kind of sabotages the situation. But this in turn causes Harrison to make decisions. Like, old girl definitely sabotaged the situation, but his grief, not only of the relationship that he thought he was coming home to like the love of his life, but also the grief of losing a friend, leads him down this road of like settling for a relationship that he wasn't really in, right? And this impacts generations. The same thing happens with Tirza. Tirza ends up in Louisiana. She is desperately trying to find Harrison, but she is still working for the family that previously owned them, which again, she's grieving the life that she thought she was going to have, and it's not happening. She does find someone and ends up having his baby, but again, it's like Tirza did a better job at acknowledging her grief. She wrote letters to Harrison, some that she mailed, some that she kept. And she kind of made space, understanding that the life that she currently has is good. She is grateful for the beautiful man that she did marry and how kind he is, and for their child, right? But then also her heart belongs to Harrison. And there's this duality that you have to learn to live with when you're grieving. And I think this is a perfect depiction of it. But I also think it's a perfect depiction of the things that you don't grieve properly, your children will have to grieve, right? Because Harrison and Tirza not being together, the way that they handled their grief caused them to pass on certain types of thought processes that in turn affected how those children figured out how to love or how to have relationships or so on and so forth. So this is one of those books that there is a surface level conversation, but you can read this very deeply. Next up, these next two books are by the same author, Jesmyn Ward, Let Us Descend. I absolutely love this book. And this is one of those that I've thought about a lot. I do want to reread it this year, but I'm waiting until, I don't know what I'm waiting for. I don't think that I'm ready to cry in the way that I probably will now that I have this. Like that my life is different. So Anise is sold south. And this, she loses her mother, and her journey south is this its own kind of journey of Dante's Inferno, right? Because she is venturing down to her own personal hell, all the while grieving her mother, right? And it's this display of having to keep going despite. And I think the backdrop of this being slavery is perfect, because that is what our ancestors do. That is what they did. That is what we still do. We move on despite. And that should be recognized as Black genius. It should be, right? And often it's not, because people don't want to acknowledge trauma. They don't want to have to face certain things. But the way that this is written, the way that she has to like figure out how to pick herself back up again, to continue to go, to find some sort of semblance of light, even though everything around her is the exact opposite of what she wants. All she wants is her mother, right? And then there's this aspect of like, there's this bit of magical realism where it's like this connection to the ancestors, right? Like how they will guide you, how you will have this connection with spirit that will get you through the different things. I love Let Us Descend. I know my reread is, I'm gonna be in here snotting and crying, okay? The other book by Jesmyn Ward, which I believe this informs a lot of her work, is Men We Reap. She talks about the loss of some very important men in her life and how those losses impact Black women. And how Black women are the sole like the Black women are the answer. Black women are the souls of the Black community, while simultaneously being the most disrespected people on this planet. And it gives you this perspective of like, yes, we need our men, right? And when things happen to them, that impacts us greatly, but that impact goes farther, right? Because Black women do have to make space to grieve, but they also have to figure out how to make a way for their babies. And babies could be the ones that they physically gave birth to, or the ones that they have decided to take care of in the community, right? They still have to work. And grief impacts all of those things, but we don't get the grace. We don't get the grace. We don't get the grace to have a bad day because then you're an angry Black woman. We don't get the grace to feel because then, you know, it's all of this otherness that isn't necessary because we just want to be like, let us be human. Let us be human. So this is a very good book. Even if you aren't grieving, if you want to get into Jesmyn Ward's work, I think this is a very good starting place because it does inform a lot of her fiction, which is why I love her so much. It goes into her talent. Another memoir. This one is by Tembi Locke. This was a book club pick a couple years ago. From Scratch. This tells Tembi's story of losing the love of her life. She met him in Florence, Italy. They had this like whirlwind love. They have a baby together. And then he gets very sick and he passes away. And she doesn't only have to navigate her own grief, but she has to navigate the grief of their child, which is a whole nother, like I said, Black women can't just be, but it chronicles her going back to Italy, spending time with his family and just trying to figure out how to heal, not only for herself, but her baby too. And I connected with that deeply because I do have sisters, right? And we are healing in tandem. That made my eyes wet. We are healing in tandem. It's a different experience to watch your sisters grieve. So I feel this deeply because there is this strong need to want to take care of them that is displayed here. Obviously different because it's a mother and her child, but it is very it's something to think about because I do consider the losses that I've had before, when my mother lost both of her parents back to back, and she lost her job all in the same year. I don't think I actually comprehended all that my mother was going through while still finding a way to take care of me, right? And watching my sisters have to be my sisters and my friend, but also mothers and girlfriends and friends to other people and so on and so forth is it's a very interesting experience. Next, we have The Last Summer on State Street. Now, this one is a little interesting because I think this can be like a conversation about grief in many different ways. So it tells the story of 4 different girls living in the projects. And they all kind of lead a different life. We can talk about the grief of not living a life that society says you should live. We can talk about the grief of losing friends, whether the friendship ends or your friends pass on. We can talk about the grief of the unknown, right? I love this book. It's heavy. The small ones always are, but it's very heavy. Next, let's talk about some ones that I don't have physical copies of. So, Memorial Drive. I'm lying. I have a physical copy of that. I don't know where it is. And I am not tearing this room apart to hold up a book for y'all. Memorial Drive is the story of a woman's mom passing. Natasha Traithway, her mom was brutally murdered. It was a domestic violence situation, and Natasha had to figure out how to live again, right? There's so much that comes with murder. Not only are you losing your mom, but you have this insight of why this relationship is bad. But you're a kid, so your voice doesn't go as far. So you deal with that guilt, right? Of like, I should have done something to save my mom. But it's like her journey is so beautiful and so poetic. So I definitely think that's something that people should read. The other one is something that I read a few years ago, and I think this is a very popular title. It is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. And this one, albeit I'm not glad at all that my dad died, but it talks about her tumultuous relationship with her mother and the struggle of grieving a person that was not nice to you, that did not do right by you, and what that feels like. And I can relate to that. I know the title is a little bit off-putting, but you should read it. I think you should read it because it gives you perspective. I often think people want you to extend grace to the dead. And as someone that is currently grieving, yes, I want people to extend grace to my father, because although I didn't always have the best experiences with him, he was just a boy navigating his own traumas. My father lost his mother when, well, I'll be 32. He was 33 when my grandmother passed away. And that shaped his life. And I think a lot of the decisions that my dad made with his relationships, with how he decided to raise his daughters, with the relationships that he had with the different women in his life, were rooted in the loss of his mother and whatever their relationship was like when my grandmother was alive, right? I only know what people tell me. I don't know what traumas my father experienced as a kid, whether, like, from whatever it is, right? Like, I don't know. But I think a lot of it is rooted in that, right? I don't really know if my father knew who his father was. So, like, that's a whole other set of things. So it's like, yeah, Logan was an ass. I think I get my best cousin skills from him. Okay? But it would be unbeknownst to me not to acknowledge that we are all just children trying to heal. And that doesn't, there has to be duality, right? That doesn't negate the bad things, but I do still think that we could extend grace. So it's like, for Jeanette McCurdy, it's easy for you to say, like, you're glad your mom died, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. It's easy for you to say that, but you don't know her life. You don't know what she experienced. You don't know what she is trying to heal, what things she still has to grapple with, right? And you also don't know how her mind will change later on. I think you should read it. And last but certainly not least is Sugar by Bernice L. McFadden. Both women in this book are grieving. Pearl is grieving the loss of her daughter, which has made her kind of throw her life away in a lot of senses, because she lost her baby very tragically. Sugar was an orphan, and she is like grieving a life that she never even got the opportunity to have, because it's a hard knock life for us. It's a hard knock life for us. You feel me? Where's Annie? And their relationship, they're able to heal each other. And I think what I took from it, although that book is very messy, okay, the way that book ends, I wasn't expecting that at all. And it doesn't really help aid the grief process because it's a mess. But there is a bit in there where they heal each other in some ways. And I think that's important when you're grieving. You have to make space for joy. You have to make space for things, because even though you're crying and even though it hurts, you still can move forward, right? You don't have to just be grieving and miserable. You can be all of the things at the same time, friend. You can still exist. You can still have fun. You can still laugh. And sometimes you're going to stumble. I still every day pick up the phone to call my father and then remember that I can't, and I have my moment. But that's okay. That doesn't have to consume me, right? And it doesn't have to consume you either. So even in grief, you can still make space for love in whatever form it tries to show face. So that is the end of my list. If you have any recommendations of books about grief, please let me know. I would like to read them. And if no one has told you today, in whatever mental state you are in, I love you. You are kind, you are smart, you are important. If to no one else, to me. Bye, friends.